Hello lovelies, long time no see, though I did have some videos backed up, so you will have seen some stuff. I have a new computer, which renders video a lot faster in higher quality, so you get to see just how old and wrinkly my hands really are from now on, so enjoy that, I suppose. Yeah, it was a bit of a nightmare getting the computer set up, but I am back and I have masses of reviews backed up that need to be done, not least of all for wee Jim Radji, who sent me a bunch of stuff just before I decided to upgrade my computer, so I owe him reviews. And quickly, so where better to start than a game with a naked woman proffering a dripping gooey brain on it. This is the Lair of the Brain Eaters for Lamentations, the Flame Princess. It is a hardback book, a little adventure with a gooey brain cover, part of the newish ramp of releases. It's about 32 pages, digest size, usual sort of high level of print quality and so on that we have come to expect from Lamentations. Nice end papers. What this is then is an adventure and a dungeon crawl beneath a graveyard. Now it has all of the usual signature Lamentations of the Flame Princess weirdness. It has a lot of that old school flavour that we all remember so well, such as, random encounter tables and so on. There's a nice little map of a period appropriate graveyard here, which is nice and reminds me of some of the ones in London. How you get to this layer is left kind of open. There's a town nearby, people are going missing, there's all the standard plot hooks and so on that you could expect. And then beneath the graveyard is a cult, and that cult has tapped into some natural caverns and so on, and is obviously preying upon the bodies and so on that have been interred or are being interred in the graveyard. So there's plenty there to go on. The descriptions are perfectly adequate, even good in some ways. The art is good, the presentation is good, it's nice and clear and clean. There's a few larger illustrations like this one. Overall it's the usual great level of quality that we've come to expect from Lamentations in terms of presentation, and the same sort of level of weirdness that we've come to expect from Lamentations in terms of the content. Now, there are all the usual problems and provisos that I have to explain when reviewing adventures. One, reviewing adventures is difficult because it's hard to review them without giving away the plot. Two, I don't particularly find adventures to be terribly useful for me, because, or particularly great value for money, because it's one and done, largely. And obviously I know Jim Radji. We haven't worked together, we've kind of worked alongside each other a bit here and there. He's a friend, he sent me this stuff for free, so you've got to focus in all that stuff. Now, in terms of longevity, which is always a concern for me with adventure booklets, the villain I like. If you can get him to survive, he might be more fun to turn up somewhere else. And there are some new spells related to the villain, the necromancer running a cult underneath this graveyard. You can enchant bodily organs to have certain effects, and one in particular, the brain, to have a de-evolutionary effect. So anyone who devours those brains turns into a monster. And there's some semi-novel undead as well as your regular skeletons and so on here as well. I'm not really selling it, am I? But there is more to it, I think, but it just requires a little bit of extra effort on your part. I think, personally, if I was writing this module, if I was playing out this module, I would pay far more attention to the prelude, like leading up to it. I would make the cult far more of a thing in the neighbouring town, and lead people slowly on towards that. Have some more intelligent cultists in the town working their way up to being transfigured into these beasts. It gave me huge Island of Dr. Moreau vibes, especially the awful film, and especially when I got to this final page. Now, Dr. Moreau was evolving animals up into being human-like and devolving humans down into being animal-like, depending on the interpretation and version and so on. And that felt a lot like what this was to me, but with a lot more schlock and weirdness added on. But I think there is the framework there if you wanted to take it further and improvise on the top of it. You could make the cult leader more of a Dr. Moreau-like figure. You could have the cult seeking to unburden themselves from the pressures and tensions of intellectual existence and so on, hence seeking to be devolved into monstrous creatures, or undead, unthinking undead, so, you know, the pain of life will end. You could give the whole thing far more of a philosophical underpinning. And if you could get the necromancer to escape so you can reuse him, he would make a brilliant recurring villain, I think, on that basis. But most of that is at best inferred from the material. So then, in terms of style, as usual, it's a nice product. Hardcover, good quality print stock, nice art, good layout, all the usual things that we come to expect from Lamentations. But we shouldn't brush over that because it is a small studio, a small company. It is a high risk endeavour to produce things to such high quality on that basis. But still, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 for style. In terms of substance, I'm going to give it a high 3, so the higher end of average in terms of substance. I mean, there isn't a lot here, but there's a lot to chew on. There's a lot to engage your brain. There are implications and extensions that you can take and add on from this. There are things you can take further. And so, you know, there is some content there you can take on for your own games. Monsters, for example, the spells or the use of devouring organs in place of magic, potions or whatever. You could take that and apply it to monstrous spellcasters and so on to give them a little bit more of a thematic feel. You know, you could run across a monster with a satchel full of organs, and in the middle of combat he stops to devour a heart, and that acts as a healing potion or whatever. You know, it's just something a bit different. So there is stuff here. So that's 4 for style, 3 for substance, 7 out of 10, 3.5 out of 5. I would again pause to remind you, as I do periodically, that I score from 1 to 5. That 3 is about the average there. So anything above a 3 is good, really good. I use the full scale, so most people distort their scales when they're reviewing things. I don't so much. So yeah, 3.5 out of 5, above average. If I were to improve on this, I would have probably doubled the length of the adventure and spent a lot more time in the town and talking about the cult and what they believe and how they've infiltrated the town and how they recruit and that sort of thing. And then I would lead up to the Lair as the sort of climactic final act of the adventure. But overall, pretty good, despite my biases. Sang.
Pulp Nova is a collection of short stories in the old pulp style but with a modern twist. You should find something here you like, from western to mythos horror to science fiction. You can get Pulp Nova at Drive-Thru Fiction, on Amazon, or in hard copy from lulu.com.
misty haze. Might is right on, fight on praise. Smoke and mirrors, twisted maze. Are you strong?